Founder of ISKCON, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Shrimadbhagavatam ki, Their Most Merciful Lordship Shri Shri Kunja Bihari ki, Shri Jagannath Shri Baladev Mani Subhadra ki, Shri Nataji Shri Balagopal ki, Shri Gauritai ki, Nitai Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the Lord's feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tojayam Dhiraya Nasta Praishu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki. Reading from Shrimadbhagavatam from Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 50. And let's see what the purport says, if there is a purport. Oh, there is no purport.
Not for 3 verses.
Not for 3 verses.
Well,
Okay, so I'm going to read the English. I'm going to read the English of the verses up to where there is a purport, up to 52. I'm going to read the English up to 52.
You can read Sanskrit.
Say that again.
You can read Sanskrit.
You want me to read the Sanskrit? Okay.
Thank you.
But see, I don't think we'll be here till 10 o'clock. Yeah, just getting through the verse. But okay, I will go through the Sanskrit once then, and then I will read the English.
thank you.
Okay. Jai Shri Radhikam Jai Jai Vikanata Bhavagavani Shivani Jai Shri Gunita. I'm very glad that you had that input, that I should read. Nakula Sahadevascha Yuyudano Dhananjaya Bhagavan Devaki Putro Ye Chanye Vyascha Yosita. Translation. Nakula and Sahadev, the younger brothers of the king, King Yudhishthira speaking of, and also Satyaki, Arjun, the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, son of Devaki, and the ladies and others, all unanimously agreed with the king. Text 51. Tatraha marsito bhimas tasya shreyan vadashmita na bartur natmanas karte yoban suktan sisanrita. Translation. Bhima, however, disagreed with them and recommended killing this culprit, who, in an angry mood, had murdered sleeping children for no purpose, and for neither his nor his master's interest. Text 52, which has a purport. Now we can all chant. Nisamya Bhima Garitam Nisamya Bhima Garitam Draupadyas Cha Chatur Puja Draupadyas Chatur Puja Alokya Vadanam Sakyo Alokya Vadanam Sakyo Idam Aha Asam Iva Idam Aha Hasan Iva Nisamya Vimagaditam Nisamya Vimagaditam Nisamya Vimagaditam Draupadyascha Chaturbhuja Draupadyascha Chaturbhuja Draupadyascha Chaturbhuja Alokya Vadanam Sakyo Alokya Vadanam Sakyo Alokya Vadanam Sakyo Idamaha Hasaniva Idamaha Hasaniva Idamaha Hasaniva. Please chant. Nisamya Vimagaditam Draupadyascha Chaturbhuja Alokya Vadanam Sakyo Idamaha Hasaniva Nisamya Vimagaditam Draupadyascha Chaturbhuja Alokya Varanam Sakyo Idam Mahasanira Nisamya. Just after hearing Bhima Garitam, spoken by Draupadya of Draupadi, Cha and Chatubhuja, the four-handed personality of Godhead, Alokya, having seen, Vadanam, the face, Sakyu, of his friend, Idam, this, Aha, said, Asan, smiling, Eva, as it. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace of Acharnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Chaturbhuja, the four-armed one, or the personality of Godhead, after hearing the words of Bhima, Draupadi, and others, saw the face of his dear friend Arjuna, and began to speak as if smiling. Please repeat. Chaturbhuja, the four-armed one, or the personality of Godhead. After hearing the words of Bhima, Draupadi, and others, saw the face of his dear friend Arjuna, and he began to speak as if smiling. Chaturbhuja, the four-armed one, or the personality of Godhead, after hearing the words of Bhima, Draupadi, and others, saw the face of his dear friend Arjuna, and he began to speak as if smiling. Purport by His Divine Grace of Acharnadavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Lord Sri Krishna had two arms, and why he is designated as four-armed is explained by Sridhar Swami. Both Bhima and Draupadi had opposite views about killing Ashvathama. Bhima wanted him to be immediately killed, whereas Draupadi wanted to save him. You can imagine Bhima ready to kill while Draupadi is obstructing him. And in order to prevent both of them, the Lord discovered another two arms. Originally, the primeval Lord Sri Krishna displays only two arms, but in his Narayan feature, he exhibits four. In his Narayan feature, he resides with his devotees in the Vaikuntha planets, while in his original Sri Krishna feature, he resides in the Krishna Loka planet, far, far above the Vaikuntha planets, in the spiritual sky. Therefore, if Sri Krishna is called Chaturbhuja, there is no contradiction. If need be, he can display hundreds of arms, as he exhibited in his Vishvarup known to Arjuna. Therefore, one who can display hundreds and thousands of arms can also manifest four whenever needed. When Arjuna was perplexed about what to do with Ashvathama, Lord Sri Krishna, as the very dear friend of Arjuna, voluntarily took up the matter just to make a solution. And he was smiling also. Because Lord Krishna comes up with the perfect solution for it all. And now he's smiling because he's realizing that this solution everybody will be satisfied with. And that's the nature of Krishna. But we can see that even he, manifesting a different form, is considering this a complex situation, right? But he's also revealing, he includes the children in the decision. This is the, how can you say, the caring feature of Krishna for all the souls to be satisfied by the decision being made about this. Can you imagine a military soldier coming into his family at dinner time telling him, what should we do with this criminal we got on the battlefield? It's just unbelievable. But this is the way they're dealing with. See, there's a quote in the Bible as well. If your enemy comes, offer him a meal. Offer him entrance into your home and a meal. You must be hungry, right? This is the way with Krishna consciousness. People come here to try and rob and steal. We have the greatest thing they could have that's offered for free a lot of times. But they don't realize. And this is what causes ignorance to push people into the prison house of the modes of material energy. But I'm smiling now myself because I got a realization of realizations this morning. See, we are in a process that requires initiation into an eternal family, which means the process described as rebirth or spiritual birth, even as it's described in the Bible, right? It's a rebirthing process, which means we die, but to be born, we have different parents. We have different mother and father now. So we are born of Bhumi and Brahma. You and you and you and me and all of us. That's how we're all family. But see, you don't come to that, and you hold on to the most recent birth in the material realm is that which you're most closely related to. But by hanging on to that one is also denying the existence of all the others before them. So if we might think, oh, I'm giving up my parents now. No, you're the means by which they also will be connected. By full realization of what the self is then, it comes to know, as the Bible says, the sons and daughters of God become manifest in the world. It means we come to know who we are as practitioners of that bhakti, or that using that energy of God in order to satisfy God, because He is revealing to us that we are family of His. We were born of Him through Mother Bhumi also. Mother Bhumi gave birth to our flesh, and Lord Brahma gave manifest the soul that we are. And that's what the spiritual birth is, knowing that the real being that we are is not however many times we've been. We don't look at ourselves now as being giraffes or elephants or deer, even though we were. And at that time, our mother, father, sister, brothers were all the dearest to us that they could be. The same way now we're looking at mother, father, family, sister, brothers, rather than self-realizing the soul is in Krishna's family. So you're not really sacrificing any more than giving up eating of meat and taking prasadam and sacrificing something. You're replacing it with something greater. And by realizing you're part of the eternal family, then this is how we get into the spiritual world as well. It is realization of consciousness. So, I got this realization this morning, and it fits in right with Srila Prabhupada saying, I'm not coming to give you something that you don't already know. See, and that what we already would know would be that everything comes from God, right? Everything comes from God. So every soul had to have been born And this is what Krishna consciousness enables us to see, the meanings of all these, the connections with all of these spiritual paths, eventually to bring the souls to the realization of the fact that we are sons and daughters of God, eternally connected to God. Isn't that amazing? But we should be willing then. We're reading about how long we've been in the material world, but we will get back to the spiritual world by developing the love and consciousness for all those unmanifest souls and all those manifest souls that are in the material world that we will not be able to contact in time for them to enter again into the cycle. How many of them at this very moment as I speak? How many hundreds, if not thousands, are you looking at it universally? Millions of souls are entering into that eternal realm of the cycle of samsara without knowing that even such a cycle is existing or that they're being caught up into it by consciousness and attachments to the inferior or the superior. Much as I love my mother and father, they're not God. They're not Krishna. Nor, if we want to look into it even further, this can't be said by all children, but my mother and father definitely did give me knowledge of God. Not total. They brought me to church in the beginning of my childhood. Then after my father got his headlights broken out at church, the priest drives up in our front lawn, hitting his car, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's drunk. The priest is drunk. Wakes my dad up. He didn't know it was my dad's house. He'd just wake up whoever it was answered, and then he knew it was my dad, and we were, part of the parish. And then he says, and then these are his words. Very famous, quote unquote, priest of the Catholic Church, Father Weir. Street was named after him. These are his words. Don't worry, Joe. It'll just be one offering. It'll pay for it. One offering will pay for it. Now, he's talking about the offering, the collection that they make in the Catholic Church for them to be contributing to God's cause. Supposedly, what you're supposed to be giving as a tithe is supposed to be going towards the purpose that God has for us, right? And here he's telling my father not to worry because he can use it for the purpose of paying for the damage done to my father's car. My father didn't go back to church after that. Not only that. Now, let me think back what year that was, because my sister might not have gotten sick till after that, because then he started cursing God. And see, which is in effect telling us, by the acts of one soul, so glorious as Srila Prabhupada's acts of one soul can have an effect on the whole world. The acts of one soul can turn other souls without them even realizing they're doing it. People come here and they turn away without the person realizing they've been the cause for them turning away. And it only takes once to see an exhibit of the very contrary nature of what the philosophy is telling us to be like. So, just like this situation here, what we see, in a sense, he's almost being considered a devotee from their situation. He's a family member. He committed to this out of what he thought would be a religious act or a military act of great valor like this. So they're in their minds, they're trying to balance it. And this happens even, it is explained that when a person is in a coma, this is because they have committed so many activities that are one's good, one's bad, one's good, one's bad. Eat a sausage, then they go out and help somebody, you know. So they have all these, so much so, Yamaraj weighing the exactness, and it is Yamaraj is taking Yamaraj time to calculate how severe the punishment should be and how great the reward should be. So the soul stays in a state of limbo. Now, we see a coma as something very bad, but he's not committing any more karma in that state. See, all these things that most human beings see as the most terrible thing there is, what to speak, death itself, right? When you're self-realized, all these things are seen from a completely different perspective. Death is the next step. The soul has completed its journey to that extent that whether it has to endure suffering now, whatever it is, it's on the next stage, ultimately for the end of all souls to be put through that will form them into the beautiful, blessed diamonds that they are, polished as we would, you know, in a simile or a metaphor, as a diamond. Would a diamond be a simile or a metaphor to the soul? I get the two mixed up. But, see, because there's so many complications, we can see, as well, I was saying in a previous class, that every paragraph is revealing to us the complexity of judgment of the soul. And Krishna himself, what to speak, these judges in courtrooms think they themselves can make decisions of how to please everybody. They can't do it. And yet the way our system is functioning, and nobody's happy. Nobody's happy with the justice system. Nobody's believing they're getting justice. Some of them feel oppressed. Some of them are actually innocently accused and then wrongly punished and put into... This is not justice. This is not God in the law system even. And so Krishna is revealing here the whole family is involved with this. Now, when we take that to another step, we see that when children are allowed to hear the involved things that are going on in their personal lives, it affects them. And so these decisions being made by the leaders means that in their very near future, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, these decisions being made by the leaders are going to very much affect what they're going to have to be living under the conditions of, in some cases. So what a person says, what to speak of what a person does then, in each one of these situations, they're taking a position relative to that they have been using their life for. In the case of Mother Draupadi, she's been a loving mother all of her life. That's who she is. Bhima, he's been a militant. He's studied this from childhood, how to learn military arts. And so he's having that perspective of judgment. Plus, he'd already sworn, Arjuna already sworn to Draupadi that he would cut his head off and deliver it to him. And as we will see, Krishna's ultimate decision is a relief. See, as well, this reveals the mercy of God as well, that is not revealed in most quote-unquote scriptures. A lot of quote-unquote scriptures would have you believe God would rather kill you and send you to an eternal fire rather than show mercy. Yeah. And so when quote-unquote Jesus Christ came along and they were stoning a prostitute, right, a harlot. I don't think this was Mary Magdalene, but her name was Mary, a harlot. And they were stoning her, and he went amongst them and told them to stop and said, whoever of you has no sin whatsoever,
let the righteous alone you
then you can throw the stone. And then one by one they start dropping their stones, and then they all left. So he brought a form of mercy that they had not known up until that point. They had known the law, period, the law of God. And by following that, they were told by Moses that they would find heaven as well. But then the law turned into a sacrifice of lives, animals, for the forgiveness of the sins of human beings. And the animals hadn't committed crimes, obviously. And human beings started making money off of this. As a lifestyle, then, their families became dedicated to that generation after generation, to taking funds that people would pay for a sacrifice in the temple to be offered as a sacrifice for sin. And then the child have to stick his finger in the body to know the blood was being offered to God as a sacrifice, because sin meant death. Sin meant death. In Vedic scripture, sin means missing the mark. So we missed the mark to get here, and because we missed the mark to get here, we're going to have to face death. Or the lack of our ability to use these bodies anymore. Or we're going to be perfected in the science of God, and the golden age is going to take over. And from there, anything is possible. Because if these saviors are coming on the planet of old, who've longed for the kingdom of heaven, they will be making it on earth. The kingdom of heaven will be made on earth through the peak of the golden age. I'm making that declaration as realization that I'm seeing that this dispensation of God's names is not going to be without effect. And it's going to be a very dramatic effect when people start turning to God. Now, we had, in a couple circumstances within history here, effects that, one affected our whole nation, that caused, as I was saying before, dramatic increase in the population of churches, which means people were praying. Normally when people go to church, they're gonna be somehow involved in a prayer. Did you see the prayer conducted by who Trump appointed to lead in prayer of one of his gatherings? It was very moving, very moving. And it's a great evidence that this, and everybody was applauding after that. And the glorification of God. Now, of course, they're addressing our Heavenly Father. Get back to the point, they're praying to Indra. They don't know that. But see, relationship is what is revealed as being so significantly important that we realize our relationship to Krishna. So that's what the eternal Mother, the eternal Father, the eternal Bhakti, the eternal energy we're as souls going to be immersed in, manifesting as Satchidananda. When we are able to manifest as Satchidananda, then we will be in our realized state. Now there are statements made in Bhagavatam that the truth of that doesn't really happen until the body leaves the soul leaves a mortal body. Then it's transformed, can be transformed. They don't know necessarily in the case of Narada Muni. And then you have a case in the Bible where it talks about Enoch walked with God in the self-same body. And Narada Muni is describing as walking to be able to see in all of Krishna's palaces, 16,108 palaces, and everyone engaged in a different activity. And everyone, when questioned, they felt that their other wives of Krishna were being deprived of his presence. They all felt that way, that they were feeling greedy because they got Krishna. Nobody understands. See, that's an illusion. So, we're going to be under an illusion, one way or another. We can't get out of illusion. But there's two kinds of illusion. The illusion that we're not connected to God, and the realization that we're so close to God that we're family, we're friend, or we're son or daughter. See, these kinds of friendships are completely different. But then, see, son and daughter puts them in a position of regarding God as the Father, right? In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it's explained that these relationships with God are gradual developments that the soul will have till it comes to full recognition of love for God, that God will cover it over with the Maya called Yoga Maya. And this is what the gopis are covered by, because they joke about Krishna thinking he's God. They make jokes about it. And they challenge him sometimes as well. And so similarly, the same God who's emanating universes from his creative body, the gopas are jumping on his shoulder, playing football with him, having all kinds of fun. And see, when you reflect on that in our own lives, for myself anyways, maybe as I see, there are a lot of children that are abused and never get to really know what childhood is supposed to be like, right? Kids are supposed to be allowed. Srila Prabhupada said, leave them alone till they're 5 years old. They don't even start correcting them for anything, you know. I've seen in some cases, though, that even when common use should come into effect, that this can be allowed to run too far. And then they have to correct the child afterwards, making it more difficult for them if they don't start a little bit of correction before. That yelling is still coming to mind. It's amazing how I saw a woman sitting in here for hours, talking on the telephone with a voice so loud, if it was on speakers, you'd want to turn the volume down. So. And she's in a temple conducting business. And then you got people in the temple room while arti is going on, which we're supposed to be glorifying God, and the telephone going on. And then them feeling compelled to be able to answer it and talk above the kirtan. Lord. Yeah. So this is going on. And I remember time, nobody had phones. So what to speak, but they're bringing telephones on the altar now. I don't see how anybody, there's a big sign there, no talking on the altar. So maybe you're just observing mantras. Okay, that would be allowed, that would be good. You can do that with a piece of paper. But the requirement for a telephone on the altar is very questionable. And it's a matter of consciousness is how important we take this service to be. Because what is also happening is devotees think there's something more important than the service that God as himself appointed them to be in the position of being able to have the privilege of directly related to his body, to his form, to his manifestation in this city of Detroit. So this is how, and in some cases you can't help but be sympathetic, just like this situation towards the devotees having to be responsible, maybe with a job, maybe with family situations that come up sometimes, and then sometimes you're trying to drive here and then they have a problem with the car. So many reasons and things that happen. But as the scriptures reveal, that which will give us the best advancement is that which can be continuous and unending, which is the meaning of eternal, which we are taking this service to be, which is why, in comparison, most of us are making a judgment in our minds like it's being made Do I want eternity? Or do I want, maybe I want a heavenly life for a long time? But that's different. And the two are different. And the two paths being established as authorized by generations and generations and generations of souls that have been on those paths and have yet continued to reveal that they are satisfied with what the paths are producing. Some of them not ever hearing of the path. And now if they haven't heard path, practically speaking, you could say it's our own fault. And see, by the missed acts of one soul, child molester, for example, this is only one act that was committed, people will take and reflect that upon the whole movement negatively, naturally. It's human nature. So that in their mind, the first thing that comes is the stories they heard about the predator, and they don't know anything about all the individuals. And we do the same thing with race. This is what's being done with race. This is what's being done with nationalism. This is what's being done with the little cliques and groups that human beings make, separating themselves as superior to other cliques and groups that are also believing themselves to be superior to the other cliques and groups. Or for the necessity of association with one another, because human beings do have the need for association with each other. It's part of the makeup, not meant. Because love, if we are in fact made of the... It's peculiar. Every time I say that word when we were in class, then she appears. It's not as she appears right there. This is the second time it happened. I shouldn't say every time. This is only the second time it happened. But if we are in fact made of love, that's what we're saying the soul is. This Satchitananda, this bliss, it is actually in itself the fullness of what love is. Because what comes out of God's mouth is what God is. And the spoken word of God's name is what form He put us into, impregnating the ear of Brahma. So the same impregnation of truth is what we're giving when we give Bhagavatam. This truth is feeding the soul. And then with that feed that we have been given, we have the ability to bring other souls from the dormant state of, practically speaking, spiritual death. Because if there's no knowledge of God being exercised in their life, then they're not going to have an experience of eternal bliss and knowledge, and then what to speak, pure love. Because the source of love, being God, then they may search for everything else in the world and not find what they're looking for, which is love, which is what everybody is looking for. And this is exactly what, as pure Vaishnavas, Mother Draupadi herself, the most hurt by this. Who would be more hurt by the loss of these children than their own mother, right? And yet she's revealing a kind of love that can't be found in any ordinary human being. And there she is, right next to Krishna, who is the master and controller of all, who has in mind of all the feelings of everyone that he's calling together to discuss this situation. What a complicated, complex thing for all the family members to realize the value of the decision being made by the cooperation of everybody. This is how government's supposed to function. And here they're even including children. When these governmental decisions are being made by adults to what's going to happen to children, there's no say-so by the children as being a reflection of anything intelligent according to this society. But in order to feel, for the children to feel welcome in that society, if their perspective is looked at, a lot of misconceptions in the mind of the children can be put out of place, can be settled, can be resolved in the children's mind, that the so-called status quo or the powers that be or the principle or the governing powers have care for them. And they care for their and respect. This is the problem with man-wife relationships. One's looking to the other for particular things that the other can give them. And the other doesn't know that it might not be as pleasing when they give it to them as they think. Or the other person might not even want it. You know. And then how we treat one another without knowing. And this is being revealed here too. See, this is how love in the presence of God is like forced out of people, being put into such a dire set of circumstance that nobody can come up with a good answer, and then Krishna comes up. Come to see the mercy of God and Krishna's determination of what will be best to satisfy this situation. Are there any comments, any questions, any realizations anyone would like to share?
You know, you spoke of
You want to speak as closely as possible to, that microphone might not even be working now, it's this one. So you can take my microphone.
okay.
No, I want to hear your question, because if your question doesn't go on, I have to repeat it. If your question doesn't go on, then nobody gets the benefit of knowing what in the world I'm talking about.
I'm at a loss for a name at the moment. I can't call his name. It wasn't Elijah. It was who you spoke of earlier. Enoch. Enoch, according to the Bible, never died.
Yeah.
Enoch was translated directly to heaven along with...
On a firing chariot.
Yes,
Flaming.
along with all of his disciples, I guess you could say. The whole community was taken to heaven.
Okay, realization you're giving me right now, right here about this. Because see, this flaming chariot is described as, isn't it? If we hear about a flaming chariot on the news, somebody's going to die. But see the nature of the sun planet, which our minds have a difficult time figuring out, from Bhagavatam explaining, Srila Prabhupada explaining, the sun planet is inhabited. And sitting on the throne of the sun planet, Surya, whom Agni is subservient to. These demigods all have positions to create the environmental circumstances that will be the determining factors of the karmic reactions people get from their lives. And that if we think this situation is complicated, think about the carrying out of the karmic reactions that all of the demigods are performing to create the circumstances. And we see the results of those activities without the connection to them. And then we give it cause by the energy itself. So we give cause of rain and thunder to the elements within itself, not knowing the consciousness by the demigods are causing these things. And our karma as well, and the false ego helps to contribute to that. And they have false egos. Demigods also have false egos, which we would never think true. But this desire for some reward, what's Krishna say on the battlefield? None of this is yours, Arjuna. Don't think of anything as a reward for yourself. He's using Krishna's energy, using Krishna's materials in this world. He had Krishna's bow, Ganima, was given to him by Lord Shiva. So nothing, see? And if we have that consciousness that it is ours, it is that consciousness that brought us here to enjoy it. That Krishna is of the loving nature to give us what we want. 5 years, when we say give a child 5 years and let them do what they want, 5 years to Krishna is a longer time than many lifetimes for us. So he's letting us do whatever we want for the first 5 years. His years. So it's better that we do what he wants us to do than we do what we want to do, is the point. Because then we will see and be satisfied knowing what his decisions are and how beneficial they are to all humanity. For the future, he's setting judgments here for people who are in the military arts, in the administrative arts, the governmental science, to know what kind of judgment should be used in such difficult cases, which each and every one of them are. You're dealing with human beings' lives. You're dealing with what will be the end after this life as well, because you can be the very determining factor of whether they go to heaven or hell by your influence, and whether they overcome the pursuits of their own mind and know the means of being able to do that, which I'm not doing enough of, this chanting. And if you want, Brian, I wanted to ask you, because you had made mention that you were finding difficulties, and I'm curious to know, because it could be caused by several things. You just don't have time because you're maybe employed or something like that, or else and your responsibilities are requiring of you.
What?
Find a rhythm.
Find what? A rhythm?
Find a rhythm.
Keep talking.
Well, the Maha Mantra is music. The Maha Mantra is music.
Did I understand? Yeah. And then,
Do the same thing every day
okay.
at the same
Give an
time.
example what song you like.
Right? By rhythm, you do it every day the same way, same
No,
time.
what song you like,
Constantly.
Kind of like attitude, find a rhythm.
Oh,
You
okay.
make a rhythm.
Now see too, here's
Now
another
you don't
statement.
have time.
Here's a statement by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Once you surrender under him, you don't owe anyone anything else. See this thing, we have Raj Kumar. He flew to India, saw both his parents, and then he came back and he immediately found out his mother had left his body. So he flies all the way back, which he didn't have to do. Because by his performing of his service here, that he has, normally, regularly, somebody else covering for him, but he is actually paying all the debt to society. That's what every one of these services has in it. You are above and beyond fulfilling your indebtedness to society by satisfying Krishna. So the responsibility we have to repaying the demigods, which is how they look and judge our lives, is what we put into the benefits that can be derived from the earth for the sake of helping others, feeding people, these kinds of things. They take all those measurements and, what planet we'll go to, what will be the circumstances where we end up. Yamraj has all this in mind as well. So, if we live in performing activities that are directly related to Krishna on a regular basis every day, like he's saying, rhythm, just somehow get connected. It might mean half an hour a day, it might be an hour a day. If you start and you have rhythm and be steady, means constant. Find what you can constantly do. And then Krishna will give you, he is the time factor in our lives that we have. We can't find times to do the things he's asking us to do. We have it at the present time out of place. But then as we give Krishna the allowance with the time we are giving him, he will be making more time for us later down the time. He's in control of time. And so when it's time and you're fulfilling responsibilities that you're supposed to be taking part in as a good representative of the path, whichever path it is you're on, because being a good father, being a good husband, being a good householder, being responsible to your job, all these things are part of being a representative of whatever path, right? Whatever path you're on, that all people are looking at you by and judging your path by, and believing that everybody on your path believes the same way you do. Isn't that human nature, right? And so this is how, as well, this is all revealing how we are intermingling with one another on the false ego platform with these kinds of relationships. And the only way to get away from it is to find the value revealed by filling. If your mind is only being exposed by reading these books every day to what's contained in these books every day, that's all your mouth will have to spit out, right? And that's how it goes. And then you will come to the realization of the value that these teachings have to give others, what this human form has been given as the highest privilege. Come in contact with Krishna, the supreme source of all life, and we are part of his family. Come to the realization of that as Krishna consciousness. Any comments, any questions, any realization? Jai. Shrimadbhagavatam, Shila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.